Okay, welcome to our webinar today. This is being the Heritage Month. We are looking at investing offshore, and the question today is looking beyond home. Should I be taking my money offshore? So welcome to the webinar. My name is Shaun van den Berg. I'm an investment specialist with PSG Wealth. My objective today is to discuss the opportunities available offshore. In other words, to take advantage of the opportunities we do have in offshore markets. Number one, and number two, obviously, to diversify our investments geographically, and then obviously also to take advantage of performances outside the JSE. So, excuse me. So a lot of people have been taking their money offshore over the years. We've seen a lot of investors, every time there's something happening politically, there's a rush offshore. Every time the rand weakens, there's a rush offshore. My objective today is to highlight the main reasons for taking your money offshore. So here's my agenda. You cannot blindly extrapolate the past. In other words, anything that always happens, it's not an excuse to run offshore. But we'll go into more detail than that. And then I want to touch on the benefits of investing offshore, and then how do you gain exposure. There's 4 ways of gaining exposure to offshore markets. Okay, so let's get going into it. So the main thing is that there are a lot of things happening. The big thing, obviously, right now is the COVID-19, the whole pandemic. It had an impact on, obviously, people's lives, on the economy, and that's worldwide. It had a big impact, I think bigger than most people expected. You can see there the second point, high unemployment. Obviously, a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people had businesses that had closed down. So we all know this whole story. We saw yesterday the unemployment stats came out, and like they've changed the way they measure it. Unemployment rate dropped, if you believe that, to 23.3% from 30%. That's the lowest rate since 2009. But obviously, that's one way of looking at unemployment. It's just the people that have stopped looking for work. That's the criteria they're looking at there. But I understand why they will be still going down lower. But it's just there's fewer people looking for employment right now. The expanded definition of unemployment that's the one that's more realistic. I think that includes the people that have stopped looking for work, and that increased to 42%, and that was up from 39.7%. That was obviously in the second quarter. So yes, we all know those stats. What's also been weighing for a lot of people is the corruption. Corruption is rife in South Africa. We've seen it with all, you name it. Okay, we're seeing it with what's happening now with the Zondo Commission and things like that. And then obviously Eskom comes and goes with the load shedding. We also see the state-owned enterprises, the SAA debacle, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. That's all part of the corruption. And then also the policy uncertainty, especially around land grabs and things like that. But put it in a nutshell, this is perception, and perception is reality for a lot of people. So yes, there's that political and economic pressure causing a lot of people to think of investing offshore. And then I've got this last point there, rand weakness, and that is not a reason for investing offshore. It's one of the reasons for taking advantage of rand weakness, and we'll talk about having exposure to rand hedge stocks, but that should not be the reason for going offshore. This is just to go a bit further on regarding the economy. This I got from the Stats SA website. We know what's happening in the economy. This is until the end of March. So we've had, you can see, I'll bring my little purse in here, spotlight. We've had 3 negative quarters of negative growth. Okay, we had 0.8, 1.4, and then it's 2%. And that was until the end of March. Okay, we still have to see the next quarter. And that was deep in the whole COVID-19 scenario. So they're expecting much more negative growth as such. So definition of the recession, the period of temporary economic decline, and obviously in trade and industrial activity. This is derived by a fall in GDP for 2 successive quarters. So we in a recession. Okay, what's the definition of a depression? Depression is a long and severe recession in economy or market. I don't want to depress you guys, but I just want to obviously highlight for you, we do know that we are in a recession. We're also very close to a depression. So what do you do about it? You need to diversify your investments and take advantage of that. So that's number one. So everybody was always taking money offshore when the rand weakens. This is a screenshot of the rand against the US dollar. You see recently until April, May, our rand weakened to 1940. And that's where a lot of people take their money offshore. And that's not the right time to be taking your money offshore when the rand is so far. You should be taking your money offshore when it's very strong, okay? Because you're going to get more bang for your buck, excuse the pun, okay? This is this morning. I saw the rand was trading at 1687. So we have pulled back, okay? But the point I'm trying to make, you know, looking at rand weakness and trying to get down your timing is not an ideal situation. It can be tricky, okay? But they have pulled back, so the rand is getting stronger. That's one of the things that you might take in consideration, but it's not the main reason for going offshore. And then also, if you look at the performance of the JSE itself, okay, this is the JSE all share, all the shares on the JSE. You see, for a long time, that was a support trend line. And obviously, with the whole COVID thing, and when the markets went into free fall, that was a very sharp sell-off. So we're below our moving averages. That was a bearish market. And since then, we've had a recovery. Okay, so we bounced off our resistance line and we're pulling back slightly. You can see on our MACD indicator, that has become overbought and it's crossing there, suggesting more pullback. So we might have some profit taking and a more pullback, maybe back to this level here, a previous support level. The point I'm trying to make also is that all markets have done the same thing. Okay, we've had the same scenario, and I'll show you, you'll see in the next slide just now when we look at performances. But one of the things that is interesting is that foreign net buying and selling. So this is until yesterday, we had 4 billion of foreigners selling our equities. Until last week, Friday, we had 2.8 billion, and for the year to date, 102 billion rand has been sold of the JSE equities. So a lot to do with rand, the dollar's strength. So people moving money back into developed markets and things like that. That's one of the main reasons. But that's also what you want to take advantage of. So what are the benefits of investing offshore? And there's three main reasons. I touched on it just now. First of all, the main reason why you want to invest offshore is geographical diversification. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So it's spreading your investment risk across different economies as well as different regions. So through the PSG offshore platform, for example, the share platform, you have exposure or opportunity to invest in 35 international exchanges, about 26 different countries. And in all those different countries, you also have the different currencies applicable to those exchanges. So that's number one, geographical diversification. So it's investment, managing investment risk. That's the main reason why you want to go offshore. Secondly, obviously, taking advantage of investment opportunities not available in South Africa. So it's taking advantage of indices and companies not available here on the JSE. So through the offshore platform, you have 1,700 shares and ETFs and ETNs to take advantage of. Just think of the JSE. We only have 450 stocks listed on the JSE. Now you have exposure to 1,700 over 35 exchanges. Obviously, there are much more. There's about 38,000 stocks worldwide on our platform, PSG platform, through our trading partner, platform partners. We allow, there's a restriction up to 1,700. It's more the big stable companies, been around for a long time. The penny stocks we avoid because it's an additional risk. Okay, so this just gives you an insight of the 26 countries I was highlighting for you. The 35 exchanges, there's 26 countries, so Australia, obviously the main markets. So it's Australia, Germany, France, and things like that. And also the UK market and the US markets. Those are the main markets most people will be trading on. And then when we talk about international shares, opportunities, I just did a quick screenshot this morning. I was looking for the most popular US stocks, for example. This is from the website, the Investor UK. You can see the link there. It's just highlight, for example, Apple and Tesla and Amazon and Zoom and Microsoft Corporation. Okay, if you go Google, there'll be a lot of opportunities for you to pick up and go do further investigation. So that's number one. Number two, on our website itself, on the PSG website, we do highlight research on certain companies. For example, Brookfield Asset Management, ABF InBev. Okay, and then we also got Pfizer, for example. So you click on company analysis, you'll see what our research analysts have highlighted about those companies. So there's additional research. There's a lot of information available out there. You go to websites like investing.com and Reuters and Bloomberg's, you'll find a lot of information. All you have to do is just do further research. Okay. So I mentioned just now, geographical diversification and investment opportunities. The third aspect where you want to go offshore is obviously performance. So offshore investments might perform better than the JSE and vice versa. So it obviously depends on a whole lot of factors, global economic conditions and exchange rates. At this point in time, as I say, it's more to do with the dollar strength, and that's been the same trend for a long period, but we can anticipate that can be changing very, very soon. Okay, so this is just a screenshot from our daily update. You can get it on our website. Okay, that's where you'll pick it up. And on news on our website, our daily investment update, you can see the JSE All Share. Okay, and I'm just highlighting the last 6 months while we've been in this COVID period. Okay, the JSE has performed 28%. That's part of that recovery. Okay, 28.94%, not too shabby. It's got a lot to do with our mining and resources sectors doing very, very well the last few months as such. You can see gold mining is up 70%, up for year to date, 132%. So yes, there's been a lot of activity there. However, if you look at the financial sector, we're still down for the year, as well as the financial industrial sector, we're still negative. But if you compare that, the same period, if you look at the Dow Jones, and the Dow Jones only top 30 companies. Okay, when I say top 30 companies in that index, we're up 28%. S&P 500, which is a broader cross section of the American economy, 32%. NASDAQ, all the what they call the FANGs, Facebook and Amazon and Netflix, etc., up 42%. Sorry, 48%. If you look at the Morgan Stanley index, they're up 32. That's the broad measure of developed markets. Okay, up 30%, and the German market you can see up 33%. The Asian markets have not performed so well. They're still negative. You can see that's the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and things like that. They're still in a bit of a recovery. Okay. So when it comes to performance, another reason for diversifying offshore to take advantage of performance. Yeah. So how do you gain exposure offshore? As I mentioned just now, there are 4 ways. So first of all, you don't have to take your money offshore. You can have a local share trading account, and this is just a screenshot of the watch list. And this is the JSE Top 40. A lot of the stocks on the JSE Top 40 are Rand hedge stocks. Now, a Rand hedge stock is a company that benefits from a weaker Rand because their sales is in foreign currency. So I just highlighted, obviously, a lot of the mining stocks. Remember, the mines are producing gold. So the local costs are in rands, but their sales is obviously in US dollars when they sell the gold and things like that. So all the mining stocks, it also go with the gold and platinum stocks. You can look at some of the industrial stocks, obviously American tobacco, Richmond, Process, and things like that. Those are what we call Rand hedge stocks. So it's one way of having exposure offshore, but I believe it's more exposure to a weaker Rand. So if you've got a local share trading account, it's one way to hedge against a weaker Rand. So that's number one. Number two, you can also have exposure to what they call exchange traded funds. Those of you that don't know what exchange traded fund is, it's buying through into one share into a basket of stocks. So it's like buying to the top 100 or top 40 stocks through one share. You're buying into a SATX 40, for example. But again, this is a watch list. This is all the exchange traded funds. You rank this. There are lots. There's about over 100 now ETFs you can choose from. You can see there's a global a property fund. That's One Invest Global Rate Fund. There's the Morgan Stanley fund on the highlight. You can have exposure to the S&P 500. So through one share, you have exposure to 500 shares. SATX, for example, you have exposure to China. So you might not get exposure on the offshore trading platform directly to the Chinese market, you get it on the Hang Seng, but not to Beijing. Okay, or so a lot of people are interested in NASDAQ. You can go, instead of buying all the different stocks on the NASDAQ, you buy one share, have exposure to the top 100 stocks on the NASDAQ. And those are all the tech-heavy stocks. Okay. And then also very popular is obviously Signia's the fourth industrial revolution funds. So all those ones involved with solar and all those kind of stuff also. There's a lot of these guys are listed on the NASDAQ. Yeah, so that's the second way of doing it. Having exposure offshore, you don't have to take your money offshore, but still having exposure for offshore. Then you can also go into unit trusts. On the PSG investment platform, I did a quick scan this morning, looking for global equity funds. On our platform, we have 35 global equity funds you can choose from. And then from there, obviously, blend and have a blended portfolio. Yeah, 35 global equity funds you can choose from. You can also go directly to PSG Asset Management themselves. They have two offshore funds. They're both in dollars. Minimum investment there is 100,000 Rand. But those are global funds you can have. If you've got money offshore already, you can have exposure in those funds. And then what I want to highlight is the offshore equity fund. So remember, all these accounts I'm talking about are separate registrations. You can open up an equity account, have exposure to Rand hedges, as well as an ETF through a local equity account. Unit trust, you can open up a voluntary investment plan, and I say with asset management, open up an account with them. But with offshore, you open up an offshore trading account as a separate registration, separate mandate. You also need to decide which way you're going offshore. There's two ways to go offshore. You can use what they call a offshore allowance, and I'll discuss that in the next slide, or you can also use the asset swap. But here's a screenshot again of a watch list of offshore stocks. Okay, so you can see obviously BP, when I took a screenshot this morning, BP, the market was open, and you can see there were trades going through. Okay, so it depends on obviously the time zone and things like that. One of these other stocks, you can see that was London Stock Exchange. All these others were US-based stocks. Okay, but as I say, there's two ways to go offshore. You need to choose which is right for you. So first of all, you can invest in a Rand-denominated investment. In other words, you're not taking any money offshore. So what we call the asset swap facility, using PSG Wealth's asset swap facility. You're not taking any money offshore. Minimum requirement is 100,000 Rand. Okay, so you get exposure offshore and things like that into the shares, the ETFs, etc. But remember, your funds are still Rand denominators. If you sell, the funds have to come back to South Africa in Rands. So who's this ideally for? It's ideally for individuals that maybe have used up their offshore allowance. They want to open up a separate account for additional funds. But it's as you find out a lot of times, there's many of the trust and companies that will be they have to use a asset swap facility. Okay, so that's the one way of going offshore. Most of you will be using what we call an offshore allowance. You want to take your money offshore, you do not want to bring it back. That's the main thing. So you use offshore allowance, and there's two ways of going offshore. Number one, you allow your 1 million Rand a year, okay, what they call discretionary allowance per adult per calendar year. Okay, you don't need to get a tax clearance. Okay, as long as it's 1 million Rand per year. If it's over 1 million Rand a year, you can allow up to 10 million. Now you have to get a tax clearance. You have to get a special tax clearance with a watermark, etc. Okay, but the main idea why you want to use this facility, as I said, it's only for individuals. Okay, you don't want to bring the money back. You want to keep the money offshore. That's what you want to use it for. So that's the four ways of going offshore. This example of a offshore portfolio. You can see there's Tencent in it, Apple, Adobe, etc. But you can see this person has a large portion of his portfolio exposed to Amazon. So obviously they like what's happening with Amazon. The cost as such, when you're going offshore, it's very easy. It's just 1% per trade. That's in and out. That's number one. And number two, there's a clearing and custody fee on the value of your portfolio. Every time you buy and sell, there's a little fee. So 0.06% per annum. That's how that works out. Okay, so it's charged per annum and divided by month. Yeah. So those are the 4 ways of taking your money offshore. So before we hit any questions, well, let me look at the questions now. Let me see what's happening. Okay, here's a question here from, sorry, let's make this a bit bigger. Okay. Does my account allow me to invest offshore? So, Mr. Patel, if you've got an offshore trading account of us, yes, you'll be able to invest offshore. If you've got a local share trading account, no, you'll be able to have exposure through ETFs and things like that. But you'll have to open up a separate account, go through the whole registration process to open up an offshore account. Okay. And as I said, it costs 1%. Those fees, by the way, is negotiable. Depending on how big your trades are and how often you trade, and obviously the size of your portfolio. Is crypto a part of the offshore? Yeah, no. PSG Wealth, we JSE stockbrokers, so we do not trade any crypto. It's not a regulated market. So no, not on our platform. Here's a question here from Carl. If when I register, can I have a local and an offshore account? Yes. So when you go through the registration process, on step 3, when you select your accounts, you can either select a local account if you just want a local, or you can also select a offshore if you want a standalone offshore account. There's no admin fee for an offshore trading account. If you want a local account, just understand there's a monthly admin fee of 60 Rand. To answer your question, Carl, local and offshore, yes, no problem. Here's a question from Liesel. Okay, yeah, I'll be sending you the presentation. Okay. Vian, there's no admin fee on the offshore trading account. There is an admin fee for the asset swap facility. Okay, it's 1.25% per annum. Okay. Our tax is lower, so it depends on obviously when you do sign up things like that. I'm not a tax expert, Vian. I think the best thing to do is speak to your tax expert. But there's a tax treaty in place, so yeah. Okay, Yusuf. Again, if you've got a local offshore account, you need to open up an offshore trading account. If you've got a local account, you need to open up a separate offshore trading account, and then we can link it to your profile. Okay. Here's a question here from Charlene. Can I buy unit trust in my offshore trading account? No, it's only equities, Charlene. Equities and ETFs. No unit trust on an offshore equity account. Okay, good question here from Greg. Is there any interest paid on cash held in the foreign account? Greg, no. Offshore accounts have negative interest rates. So no, you don't get any interest on those accounts. You don't want to keep it's not a place to park your money. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Jan, I wouldn't know tax rebates from an offshore account to get them back into South Africa. I wouldn't know what the process is there, but yeah, we can find out for you later. Okay, I'll answer you by email. Yeah, the last question here from Johannes. Can I trade the Chinese market and Indian stock markets on the platform? Unfortunately not. The closer you get to China, as I say, you can either go through the I think it was the Satrix Chinese ETF. That's number one. Alternatively, is you can only have exposure to the Hang Seng or the Hong Kong stock market, not India. No, sorry, Jan. Okay. If I want, there's a question here from Mornay. If I want to trade individual offshore stocks, what is the process? So first of all, if you've got an offshore trading account of your own, it works exactly the same way as buying local stocks. You'll go log into your account, go click on the buy button, enter the share code, and that's the process. What I would suggest to people, first of all, is go look at a website like investing.com, see what was the last traded price, and then try and place an order, a limit order is just slightly higher than the last traded price, because sometimes we have slippage in that, but that's a obviously way to do it. You can either do it yourself online, or you can also email our dealing desk at psg.co.za, and they'll be able to place the trades for you. Okay, and I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Okay, looks like that's all the questions. Cool. Okay, great. So let's quickly summarize this. As I said, there's 4 ways to gain exposure offshores. You can go through the lineage stocks, you can go to unit trusts, ETFs, and also offshore shares. Remember, with offshore shares, you can either go asset swap, that's mainly for companies and trusts. Individuals can do that too. The difference there is that there's an admin fee, and you have to, when you sell, you have to bring the money back to South Africa in rands. That's the 2 big differences. Obviously, the other option is to go offshore, what you call offshore allowance. You can use 1 million to go offshore annually without having to get tax clearance, or you can go take out up to 10 million offshore, but you need to get tax clearance. Okay, and that's for individuals only. Main benefits of going offshore, as I mentioned, geographical diversification, and obviously opportunities into sectors of shares not available in South Africa. And as you saw just now, also performances of the other markets compared to the JSE have been slightly bit better. But the main idea is that you want to take advantage of all those markets. Why do people go offshore? There's many reasons. Financial circumstances, the children might be going to varsity and things like that overseas on their funds offshore. Their dreams, or maybe want to diversify, want to move overseas, things like that. So, anyway, guys, that's the presentation for today. Those of you that are looking at having exposure offshore through unit trust, there's a link there. You can click on that and open up a voluntary investment plan and go search using our funds PBHZ tool for global funds. As I say, there's 35 to choose from. You can click on that link, open up a local offshore trading account if you haven't got an account with us yet, and if you don't want to take your money offshore. By the way, with the offshore accounts, there are minimum investments. Like there's the unit trust with PSG Asset Management, minimum is 100,000. I know with offshore allowance, we say £5,000, which is roughly about 85,000 Rand, which is working on about 100,000. So it's not for everybody. Hence those are alternatives for you guys. Okay. So the webinar recording and the webinar presentation will be sent out hopefully by either today or tomorrow morning. But from my side, happy investing. There's our contact details. Any questions you have, you can drop us an email. That's a wealth box, wealth@psg.co.za. Or you can also contact us on the team number 0860 000 368. From my side, guys, thank you very much for being on this webinar. Thanks for showing your interest in offshore. But again, just my disclaimer, everything in this presentation was for education purposes only, not for any recommendations and things like that. But yeah, as I say, it's mainly for education purposes. That's my disclaimer. So guys, thanks a lot for being on this webinar. Until next month, all the best. Bye for now.